Hi there, guys and girls. Oh man, this is a bit of a disappointing video. I'm sort of a bit crushed by this. Firstly, I got to give a shout out to Dynasty, who posted this on Twitter. That apparently there's a rumor going around. Well, I say rumor, but like I'll get to it, right? That we might not get MK Gold, MK Mythology Sub Zero, or Special Forces, right? And firstly, I got to also give a shout out to. Oh man, I thought I was prepared. I'm not, as usual. Sorry about that. I'm sure I took a screenshot. There it is. A shout out to the person who grabbed this interview, Shinfits. Shinfits on YouTube. Go give him a sub, guys. He did this great little interview with Dan Amrich. At Evo, and this is where this comes from. I'll put a link in the description so you can watch it. By the way, I just want to say I've known Dan Amrich. I've known of Dan Amrich because I'm here in Australia. I've never met him face to face or anything, but he did that arcade gaming shrine for Palette Swap Ninja, which I absolutely adore. I love that fucking song. It's on my stereo in my car, yeah, so he seems like a really cool dude. I didn't even know he was working digital clips, and then when I found out, I did reach out. I sent a tweet out. I was hoping to maybe work with Atari and digital clips, with them on this collection, but I've been ignored on every front. So I'm not blaming Dan Amrich. That's probably coming from the WB side of things. I probably don't talk to him. He said bad things, but I said honest things. But anyway, that aside, in this interview, he talks a lot about, how fans want things. And he's right. Fans just expect to get their game in here, and it doesn't work like that. You got legal, tech, blah, blah, blah. I understand all that. And I've said all those things. And personally, and he might not be talking about me specifically, but personally, I think the things that I've suggested are well within the realm of the collection. I will say this too. I have seen a lot in my comments. We need Shaolin monks in the collection. We need MK9. Look, I get it, guys. Like I'm with you, man, and so is he. But the reality is, this is the legacy collection. There's no way in hell that they could upscale all those graphics. I'm just going to tell you, as someone who rips these games, like I rip stuff to put stuff on Twitter in a nice quality, or rip an image or something, right? I ripped some Shaolin Monk stuff last night. It was like 5,000 ADX files. That's just the ADX files. Then you got all the art files, the binary files, the model files. Man, there's so much shit inside the game that you don't know about. There's just bunches and bunches of sound effects and music and graphics and models and meshes and code, and it's just when you decide to do something like this to put it out, that means you have to, I guess, somehow touch on each of those files, and whether it be upscale the graphics or bring up the audio quality or change some of the code, and it's a huge undertaking. So even to get Deadly Alliance, and by the way, Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, they all have the same. They all have like thousands of files. Shaolin Monks, MK9's the same. When you rip one model for MK9, look, one model, that one model then has a subset of files for that one model. It has about 1,000 files. That's each model, and then there's like bunches of models. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a huge maze of shitness and programming and graphics, and like it's a big fucking mess. Like when you become like a ripper and a reverse engineer, and people like the Thinny and the Drusus and Omaka and all us guys that like tinker with things, we know this. We see the insides, and yeah, it's a huge undertaking to do this stuff. So I never thought that there would be a Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, Shaolin Monks, MK9. I never expected any of that. I'm hoping though that in the future we will get something like that, like a legacy collection too. For this collection, I pretty much expected anything before PS2 was fair game. As he says, they're not going to build a PS2 emulator and blah, 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 right? But the crux of this video is that And I'm going to just play this one part because this is the most important part when he's talking about these games. And I want you to pay attention because I'm only going to play it once. I don't know, it's just hard to rewind and blah, blah, blah on here. What happens is he says, you know, fans want this and they want that and they want, you know, and they think because Trilogy's in it, this is going to be in it. And then MK Gold gets brought up. And then the interviewer goes, are we getting MK Gold? And he looks at him and goes, and shakes his head. But I think he might have been talking about MK9 because he mentioned MK9 right before he said MK Gold. Even though he looked at him and shook his head. He was like in a sort of a what would you say? He was in the sort of he was in the zone talking about a subject. And he mentioned MK9 and then like after that Gold, no, shook his head like that. Do you know what I mean? But so I'm not sure. A lot of people are saying there's going to be no MK Gold. It's very possible there is no MK Gold and I'm wrong. Do you know what I mean? But I do think part of this interview is misleading where he says that, oh, we don't have the technology for that. I mean, but bro, listen, I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm not saying I'm right. But the thing is, they made an ODE. An ODE is an optical drive emulator, right? So that's an emulator they built to run the PlayStation game. So as far as I'm concerned, if they did Trilogy, they should be able to do Mythology Sub-Zero. Sorry, I've just been up on the roof, so I'm a little tired. Mythology Sub-Zero and Special Forces, right? So I believe that if they can run Trilogy, they can run these other two games. Now, that doesn't mean that they can just go swap in the ROM or the files or to make it work. Like these guys said to Max, they had to, you know, patch things, the select screen to fix the speed of the cursor moving and loading in graphics. So, yes, I'm sure it is possible that they could emulate Mythology Sub-Zero, but then they might need to do more work to make that work to a acceptable play for the acceptable way to play for the player, right? So we don't want anything that's too fast or too slow or that's loading where it shouldn't be loading, even though there's no disk. You know, some of this stuff might have to be patched or manually patched or fixed, and that's all time. So because of that, maybe we're not going to get Mythology Sub-Zero, maybe we're not going to get Special Forces because you need to put that extra time in to make sure everything's working right. These guys stand by their product. You know, like I said, I've got the Cowabunga collection and it's awesome. So, you know, I do think that, I'll say this for 100%, I do believe that the game can run Mythology Sub-Zero and Special Forces because they're both PlayStation games and they built an emulator to play PlayStation games, right? Like I said, they might need a bit of work to be optimized. Now, here's the thing. Dreamcast. Technically, Dreamcast was a competitor for PS2. They were out at the same time, I know, because I was working in a game store at that time. And I was telling everyone to buy a Dreamcast, and they were all buying PlayStation because it played DVDs, right? But here's the thing. Like, as someone who's looked, and I was looking at the Mortal Kombat Gold files last night, I even posted a really cool picture on Twitter of all these stained glass windows from the church stage from MK Gold. I know that they could emulate that. I know 100% that they could. That's definitely, you know, emulatable. Because he talked about, like, obviously Switch needs to be able to run all these. And a lot of people don't take that into account. Like, because the Switch is the least, most powerful console out of the 3-4 that has to run this software. You know? I know that they could run MK Gold. Because, here's the thing. Dreamcast ran on these GD-ROM discs back in the day. They used a special technology, a special drive, and you know, the discs were burnt in a certain way. And this is nothing new. Xbox did a similar thing where its readable sector started at a different location, so you needed a special drive. The drive that's in an Xbox is just a CD or DVD-ROM, sorry, from a computer, but it's a certain make. It's like a Toshiba, a blah blah blah. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's like 3 or 4 drives that are capable of reading an Xbox disc. because they have that chip or whatever that with the right software you can tell it to read the disc here instead of here. Here is where a normal CD always starts. But on Xbox it starts down here. Unless you have a special drive to tell it to do that, it won't be able to read it. That's why when you put an Xbox disc in there, they cleverly burnt a ring on the standard sector that says you need to put this into an Xbox. It doesn't work on anywhere else. But if you have the right drive, it knows to read here first, and then it boots from this location, if that makes sense. Right? I'm trying to explain this as best I can. That's the best way I can explain it. I'm sure I'm probably explaining it wrong, but from what I understand, as someone who copied all the Mortal Kombat discs to my hard drive, I used something called, what's it called? SEX or something? SEX or SFX or something? It was something like that. It was some application that once you had the right drive, you just ran that program and it was able to just copy the whole CD to your PC or whatever, and then you could start tinkering with the files. So going back to Dreamcast, it used a similar protection technology with the discs and that. It got broken very quickly, and then suddenly everyone wanted to buy a Dreamcast. Remember I was saying everyone wanted a PlayStation? As soon as they broke the copy protection, then everyone wanted a Dreamcast. All the pirates were buying or copying games, and they just were coming in and buying the console and a controller off us. And unfortunately, there was nothing we could do. But, so basically what I'm trying to say is, a Dreamcast had all this protection in the front of it, but once you're past that, it's just another game that runs off a disc. Do you know what I mean? And while it is within the realm of a PS2 game, the data, the Mortal Kombat data is pretty basic. It's not like it's like a racing game where it has to load in things quickly and blah, blah, blah. The home version of MK Gold, pretty much once it's running, it's fine. I want to use Crazy Taxi as an example. If you play Crazy Taxi and you play the game super fast, there's something called what was it called? A taxi dash? It was like brake, accelerate, shift up or something from memory. I used to do it. And yet the taxi like zooms and takes off. If you would do that on a Dreamcast, you could like zoom through the city without hitting anything, and you could actually beat the loading time, and the city would be like loading in as you're like dashing through, because you're actually moving through the game faster than the system can pull the data off the disk and load it into memory, right? So that's not really a problem with MK because it's a fighting game. Yeah, sure, it has to load everything in, and then they just fight. But you're sort of not really testing the limits of the disc and needing to access stuff super fast like a racing game where you're like zooming through a city that has to load all the, all the environment. So I do believe that MK Gold is capable of running. But he says here, he shakes his head. Anyway, that's my explanation behind the tech. From what I know, from what I understand, from being a computer technician, from being someone who tinkers with Mortal Kombat files, being a fan, and what I expect from the game. Let's watch this interview now, and then I'll talk a bit more after it.
As soon as we said we're doing Mortal Kombat Collection based on the classic arcade era, everyone's like, you gotta have trilogy. Yeah. You gotta have trilogy, you gotta have gold, you gotta have Mortal Kombat 9.
Are we getting?
Again, it's a technical thing.
So he says, you gotta have trilogy, you gotta have gold, you have 9, and then he says behind the camera, are we getting it? And he confirms in this interview that he says gold, and then Amrich says and shakes his head. I believe it was a miscommunication, and he thought he was talking about MK9. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm hoping. And the reason why I think that we should be getting MK Gold is it's the premium version of MK4. And like we've never had MK4 before. So yeah, it's great that we're going to get the arcade MK4. That's awesome. But to get MK Gold, to get Katana, Kung Lao, Sector, Cyrax, I think it was, whoever else, 5 characters, right? To get Melina, to get it's like Ultimate MK3. It's like MK3, no Scorpion. I'll never forget Ed for that. you know, Ultimate MK3, they brought back Scorpion, Katana, Reptile, you know, Ermac, Melina, Classic Sub-Zero, you know what I mean? That's the best version of MK3, MK3 character-wise, right? So, to not have MK Gold, yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're getting MK4 regardless, don't get me wrong. But I just feel like we should have, if they can emulate the Zeus chip from the arcade, surely they can play the home version, the Dreamcast version, the home version, which is like, it's basically like when I look at the file structure, it's like looking at the PlayStation disc of MK4. That's where I'm going with this. Surely it can play MK Gold. Now, this interviewer also says later that he asked specifically about Mythology, Sub-Zero, and Special Forces, and said that he denied that they would be part of the collection. He also said something about those 4 question marks were never meant to be games. They could be other things. Something I've always been worried about is, I'm glad the first one was trilogy. That's awesome. But something I was worried about was that the other question marks could have been, I don't know, remember how, like, not every single game was there. I think, like Ultimate MK3 is missing from Genesis. I was worried that one of the question marks was going to be, like, Ultimate MK3 Genesis. I'm like, Like, if I've got the arcade version, like, don't get me wrong, I'm glad the home version's there. It's something I've always talked about, actually, that they've never put out the home versions on a virtual console or anything. So, you know, I'd be glad that they're there, but I think it would be better if we had Mythology Sub-Zero. I don't give a shit about Special Forces, by the way. Like, I do want it there. I do want the legacy of it preserved, right? There's that side of it, like, as in preservation. But if, like, Ed Boon came up to me and said, hey, TotalMK, what do you want in the game? Do you want Special Forces, or do you want, I don't know, the grid or something? I'd be like, bro, the grid. like if he said the same thing, MK4, MK Gold, I'd say MK Gold, you know? You know, if he said, you know, Special Forces is a very low priority for me. But I'm clinging onto the hope that we're getting Mythology Sub-Zero. I'm clinging. Like, John Tobias is working on this project. It's got to be in there. I know, see, I'm a bit iffy on Special Forces because I know for a fact Ed doesn't like it. I know for a fact probably John Tobias doesn't like it. Do you know what I mean? Because it was going to be a different game and it got changed. Okay? So, there's probably a lot of, you know, a lot of, just, not negativity, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of just, out of everything they could do, out of everything they could accomplish, I mean, it would probably be like, why would you put that on there, sort of thing. But Mythology Sub-Zero, that came out under Midway. It was very popular. A lot of people bought it, and Tobias did such a fucking good job with that game, with the lore and the story of Mortal Kombat. You can't tell me him coming back isn't like a, doesn't line up with the fact that it could just that, you know, it's got to be one of the other 3 question marks. Like I said, that's why I think MK Gold will be in it, because of the fact that it's the premium version of MK4, and that's why I think Mythology will be in it, because Tobias is back on this team. It's such a good lore game. A lot of people love and hate it. I don't know. I'm just hoping that this, and this is what I want to say too. It's very rare. I know this guy works for Digital Eclipse. I'm not sure what his role at Digital Eclipse is, you know, because he won't talk to me. I've tried to talk to him and Stephen Frost, and that's it. I've given up. I've reached out to Atari. They've ignored me. So, but the thing is, it's very strange. It's very odd, as someone who's done media, for someone to be like, no, that's not in it. That's not going to be in it. That's not in it. We're not doing that. No. Do you know what I mean? It's very strange for something to be deconfirmed like that. Like, and this is the only video where this has happened. Like, it hasn't happened in, like, the IGN one or the Max one or any other video. No one said there's going to be no Mythology Sub-Zero or Special Forces or MK Gold. It makes me think he could be trolling. I don't want to call this guy a liar. This guy's done this video or anything. I just think there's something strange with this. I don't know. It doesn't sit with me. Maybe it's the fact that I just think we have to have MK Gold and Mythology Sub-Zero at least. You know, that, I mean, if they're not in it, maybe they can be DLC. I'll say that. If you're watching this, Atari, I know you're watching. You ignore me, but you watch all my videos. Listen, if you can't put it in, consider it for DLC, please. MK Gold, Mythology Sub-Zero, please. Because, like you said, we got to conserve the legacy of Mortal Kombat. We got to conserve these old games, and I believe that, you know, this is the PlayStation era games. You know, even though one's Dreamcast. You know. And then we'd be moving on to PlayStation 2, which would be, you know, Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, Shaolin Monks, 4 games, right? And then you'd have the next one, which would be MK9, MKX, MK11, MK1 sort of thing. I don't know how far it's got to go, but, I mean, at least MK9 remastered, right? So, yeah, I mean, I've said everything I want to really say in this video. Again, thanks to, I forgot his name. Sorry, Shin something. Thanks for Dynasty for posting this video, my boy Dynasty. You know, keeping it real, being honest. You know, it's hard when you're a Mortal Kombat content creator. You be real, you be honest, and then they ignore you. You know, and then they talk about how they love all the MK fans. Really, prove it. You know, yeah, it's just disappointing. I've done nothing but be honest. My opinions might be abrasive, but they're always true. And if I get anything wrong, I always correct it. So, don't know what to tell you. But yeah, thanks for everyone for you know, linking this interview, and for him to do it, for doing the interview, and Dynasty for letting us know. And yeah. I just hope this isn't true. I hope this is some sort of troll or some sort of gotcha, some sort of bullshit thing. I think it, you know, I feel like they're setting up a crescendo. Like, no, MK Gold's not in it, and then like, what? 3 days later, MK Gold. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my god, they said it wasn't in it. I don't know. It's just strange that one guy is saying it's not in it. You know, and then I mean, it makes it sound very legit. Like, well, we can't do that. The technology and blah, blah, blah. But I know it is definitely within the realm of them being able to do it. So, but like I said, it could be a time thing. I could be wrong. So we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks for watching, guys. And I'll see you guys for another video soon. Peace out.